The special topic is urban community and forestry. You want to go on the website and study that. I got a nice link from Virginia Tech on urban forestry. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's pretty good presentation there. Just note, we do map soils in urban areas just because they're covered in pavement and buildings. We'll still map. That's University of Missouri right there, where the national, whoever wins the competition is going to end up going. And there is some soils information there. So you can get soils info for an urban area. Mainly you're looking at whether or not the soil is going to support trees and be able to get their roots into the material and not be compacted and too dry there. So soil science is also called pedology. I'm a pedologist. It's the scientific study of soils, including their origin, characteristics, and uses. I consider soils, again, pretty much anything that humans do involves either using the soil. We all need to eat. We all need clean water. We build our houses on it. Wildlife uses soil. So there's really, if you think about it, it's hard to find something that humans do that doesn't either need soil for or require good soil to do it. So, and that's a picture of our unofficial state soil of Rhode Island. We have a state appetizer now. We got a state tartan, which I have no idea what it is. We don't actually have an official soil in Rhode Island because our legislators in the late 70s didn't want to spend time adopting soil. They basically said it's just dirt, so who cares about it? So we're hoping that 2015 is actually the International Year of Soil. So there's talk that we might try to get some talk on trying to get an actual official soil in Rhode Island there. And I actually have the Narragansett soil out there. We'll take a look at that today. It's a beautiful soil. I'm not going to go through all this, but just know your objectives. Basically, study, like I say, study everything you can about soils. When we look at a soil and when we're mapping soil, we look at what we call the 5 factors of soil formation. And these were kind of first recognized by a soil scientist called Hans Jenny in the 1930s, where he related the soils that you would find on a particular landscape to be the result of 5 different environmental factors. And those are topography, that's how steep your soils are, which direction the slope is. Obviously, if you're on a very steep area, your soils are probably going to be highly eroded. A lot of the rain is going to take the soil, so you'll have shallow soils. When you get into a nice flat area, your soils tend to be nice and thick. That's where all the material is going. You got erosion and deposition taking place. If you're on a convex slope, that's relating to the aspect and topography there. Your soils tend to be drier. When you go into a concave area, that's where water's going. Your soils are going to be wet. So a very important factor there is the topography of the soil. The other one is the organisms. That's the micro and macroorganisms that live within a soil. If you ever read about the biology of a soil, it'll say something like in a teaspoon of soil, there's more microorganisms than sand on the beach or something like that. So there's a lot of little bacteria and fungi living within the soil. And also when we talk about organisms, it's the macro. It's the animals that use it to dig in. It's the worms. It's the humans that pick it up and put it in a backhoe and dump truck and dump it somewhere else. So we're also a factor of soil formation there. Climate, how much rainfall we get, whether the soil is dry. Think about the difference between a desert soil and a soil that's in a rainforest. Is very important. Whether or not it's permanently frozen. If you're up in Alaska, we have soils that are called gelisoils, and they have permafrost. They're permanently frozen, but they're still soils, recognized as soils. We even recognize soils now in Antarctica. There's a soil station out there that's doing studies on the soils in Antarctica. So, parent material, that's basically the geologic material in which the soil formed in. Certainly if you win and you're going to go to Missouri, you're going to want to read about the geology of Missouri to figure out what type of, what their parent material of the soil is out there. And all of these factors over time, again, how young or old is the soil is very important. If a soil is very old, it's probably highly weathered. There's probably a lot of clay in that soil because it takes a long time for a particle to break down to a clay-sized particle. In our neck of the woods, our soils are very young. They're only about 14,000 years old. So they're very young soils, and they have very little soil formation. When you go to Missouri, you're going to see soils that are what we call ultisols, the ultimate in soil development. They're very old, millions of years old, as opposed to our young glacial soils here. Of these 5 things, anybody know what the 2 kind of dominant things are that we're looking at to map and differentiate our soils in our neck of the woods here? Yes.
Parent material
You got it?
and climate.
Parent material you got, the other one would be topography and relief. Climate, again, all of these are important, but climate, all of our soils kind of formed at the same time, relatively speaking. The climate is all, we all get, our soils in the area get the same amount of precip. We don't really have north versus south facing slopes to have different climates on there. So the topography and the parent material are kind of the 2 major things we look at when we map soils. We have what we call a soil landscape relationship, and that's what we use to classify our soils, is where we are in a landscape and then what is the parent material of that soil. So the 2 things you need to know is the geology and being able to read the landscape, which is very important. So the parent materials, there's a lot of different types. You got volcanoes. It tells you what the type of minerals that are going to be within the soil. I mentioned the Narragansett Basin has different looking rocks than the granitic uplands that we're on here. The reaction or the pH of the soil, if your soil formed in calcium carbonate or limestone, you're going to have high pH. If they're in granite, typically you have your acid type soils, which we have here, low pH soils. The color and a lot of the chemical physical properties are all related to the parent material of the soil. So again, if you're in a volcanic area, you're going to have ash. You might not want to be building houses on an area that's subject to ash deposition. All of our parent materials in New England are glacial. The Pleistocene epoch started about 1.8 million years ago, ended about 8,000 years ago, probably 10 a little bit closer here. At this time, there was 4 major advances where fall exceeded snowmelt, huge ice sheets moved down from Canada, covered the land, stayed for a period of time, an interglacial period came, the ice went back up, and then this happened again about 4 major times within that 1.8 million year ago thing. The last advance is called the Wisconsin glaciation, and the names of them are derived from where the till was kind of first recognized. And that was basically covered all of Rhode Island, all the way out to Block Island, which forms the terminal of the moraine there. And I'll show some slides as to when it comes. So all of our soils are what we call glacial soils. They're either glacial till, outwash, or some kind of post-glacial soil there, because this glacier covered the entire area. You can see here is 24,000 years ago, Block Island. 21, where we are now, is about 19,000 years ago. This is where the ice was, and by 18,000 years, the ice was out of Rhode Island. So again, it came down here quickly, and it left quite quickly in geologic time. So the first type of parent material, as the glacier's coming down, it's plucking off bedrock. You got a picture of mile-high plus ice sheet coming down, how much that weighs. It's dragging, scraping up all the soils that were here before, mixing it up, and then depositing it. And that material it's depositing is called till. It's a heterogeneous mixture of all your particle sizes, from clay all the way up to boulders. It's the oldest type of deposit, meaning that's what was deposited first as the ice was coming down. And then as it left, there was other material deposited there. So anytime you start seeing these oval-shaped hills, and then you dig in the soil, you start finding boulders, and just a mixture of material, you're in glacial till. So a lot of the northwest hills in this area, you start seeing stone walls, you're probably in a glacial till soil. And there's 2 major types. There's a type called basal, or now we call it lodgement till, and then there's more of a looser, sandy material called the ablation till. This basal till tends to have a very dense, restrictive layer. We call it dense till, and that's got an important property in that it perches water. It doesn't allow water to move through it very rapidly. So in these types of soils where you have this lodgement till, you can expect to have high water tables. And this is, again, just kind of showing you the hydrology that occurs in these tills, where you have this hard pan layer. And a lot of people, they'll buy the house saying, oh, I'm up on top of the hill, I should be high and dry, no problem. You buy it in the summertime, March, April comes along, your sump pump's constantly running, and you get wet basements on here. Then you go to get a septic system done, and a soil evaluator comes out and tells you got a water table at less than 2 feet below the surface, and now your system's going to go from being $8,000 to $10,000 to being $30,000 to $40,000.